Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your Minifigure host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcoming all you lovely folks from across this giant blue marble that we live on. Hope all of you are doing well. Today, we have a Lego Masters United States recap from Season 3, Episode number 8. And there's a lot to talk about. So let's just go ahead and jump straight into it. Alrighty, let's stretch ourselves out before we get into this. But this episode, they had the mini golf challenge. They had to create a mini golf hole for Will to putt-putt through. I love mini golf. It is one of my favorite things to do. I have not done it in many, many years, probably closer to 10 years. I still love it. I golf, not frequently anymore these days, but from time to time. But mini golf, you can never go wrong. So up first, we have Ethan and Dom. Ethan and Dom did the Jungle Temple Adventure. I love the idea of a conveyor belt to take the ball up through the build. I thought that was absolutely exquisite. It reminded me of the Lego City. Was it the Jungle Hunters, Jungle Treasure? I can't remember what it was. It was probably about 6 years ago. It reminded me specifically of that. It was great. You had this giant build, almost like Legends of the Hidden Temple-esque style that was going on here. But you had this conveyor that was taking the ball from the base up through the top. It would roll down on the other side and then into the next build. The only downfall of that part of the build was they had the larger treads of track that can clip together. And what ended up happening, you have a spot where you can put rods, you can put other things in it. They put in 2 black rods, one on each side. Unfortunately, this was not the best choice. I'm sure in hindsight, they were looking at it thinking, oh crap, we messed up majorly. But when I was watching, I was like, maybe attaching another piece to the top of those rods to, almost clasp the ball would have been a better idea. I don't know how that would have worked as far as the underside of this conveyor belt working, but, it could have been better. It was just too narrow. So the ball missed multiple times. Now, on the episode, what we were actually able to see, I think it missed 3 times. It's not bad. There's flex in Lego and everything else, and the ball may not have been positioned perfectly, and it has divots in it or dimples in it in the ball. There's always these things to consider. So the ball comes out the other side, and then there's another build. This ball's supposed to go through, and it's supposed to kind of almost be pushed through when a gate opens in the front and knocks it through if it needed it at all. And the gem that they had in that second area, that second build, had fallen, and it had stopped the path of the ball, which was kind of unfortunate because it wasn't able to roll any further forward, which kind of sucks. Ultimately, Will was able to complete the hole, but, it leaves a black eye on your build. It leaves you to a potential, elimination or in the bottom 2. It's just one of those things. It's like, you know what, man, I wish if we could have gone back, we could have changed this. You just never know. Emily and Liam are up next. They did a build called Squirreling Around. It had some squirrels in it, had some blue jays in it. The squirrel and the blue jay that were in it were motorized, which I thought was kind of neat. It was a timing hole, by the way. If you're not familiar with timing holes, the way they work is when you knock a ball into a certain, let's say an entrance, if you don't hit it in at the right time, it may pop out at a separate hole or a separate exit and not hit the hole as you want it to. I like the idea of it. It's fun. It's unique. It's different. Jamie loved it because they had learned from their motor functions from the previous episode and done much better or in the past. I love that idea that they are growing. That's an important step at this point in time in the competition. However, it seemed like the hole was a little too advanced for a simple competition. And what I mean by this is this was essentially a challenge where you needed the prettiest build with some minimal functionality. Minimal. And I say that because the more advanced your mechanisms 1, 2, 10 become, the more difficult it becomes to accomplish that. And so many teams really didn't nail it because they went too big. And in this case, Emily and Liam's was a little kind of squirrely, no pun intended here, but it was kind of squirrely. It wasn't really the best as it could have been. And I think that's part of the problem with the whole and the way that Will kind of went through it. It was a little too advanced for what they were trying to accomplish. The build was not bad, but it was not as great as it could be. And Jamie also had mentioned, the Blue Jay, such an antagonist in this, why wasn't it bigger? I agree. The Blue Jay should have been much, much, much larger. It could have been a much bigger and more prettier build than what it was. But as a whole, I see what I did there. On the whole, the whole was functional for Will in the way that he needed to complete the challenge. Nick and Stacy are up next here, and Nick and Stacy did the game of cat and mouse. The interesting thing behind this is there's some cheese wedges that they have placed on the playing surface for the mini golf, and then they also have this big kind of mousetrap dealio, this big building which is kind of ugly looking. It's a lot of blue, it's a lot of white. It's not pretty at all in my personal opinion. But the goal is to be able to hit the ball into this building, and essentially it is going to go up from there in an upward climb with the motors that are being used, and then it drops down on top, and then it has a slight angle towards an internal pegboard that bing, 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 and then it pops out of one of 3 holes in the bottom. Now, when Will's ball went up, it popped out. It did not move very far outside of the build. I wouldn't say maybe 3 or 4 inches, maybe 5 at most. Anyway, but he was able to complete the hole. Now, like I'd already mentioned about the blue and the white, I was not a fan of the exterior at all. In comparison to the other teams that threw their builds together, I thought this looked like absolute monkey crap. That's a play off of the last episode, if you're not aware. It just was not good. It looked ugly on the outside. The color choices were not pretty. It looked unfinished. Amy even brought it up. Look, if I'm seeing it, I know Amy's seeing it times 10. And it just wasn't very pretty. So unfortunately, it's one of those things where, yes, you got the function work. And one of the things that they had mentioned is when they moved it from the table to the course, to their little stand that they had to put it on, it just, Nick was worried that some things on the inside had moved. And when you're talking about complex machinery, anything that's off by a hair or two, that's going to change the way things work. It's going to skew it one way or the other. And, they're fortunate enough that nothing was loose enough or too tight to create a problem in their build. It just wasn't very, aesthetically pleasing. And it's when you're prepping for these things, you really just kind of have to go through and I know you're looking at, I need this function. This is what I want to do. But on the outside, if it's not pretty to the eye, it's ugly altogether. It doesn't matter how great it is. It's ugly. Brendan and Greg are up next here. They did a build called Under Construction. It is a construction yard that is going on. I did like that. I'm a giant fan of construction stuff. Not fanboying here at all, just saying the truth. I love the logistics of getting the ball from point A to point B with their build. So you knock this thing up a ramp, and then it slowly rolls down the length of what is supposed to be almost like the length of a crane arm, like one of those big skyscraper crane arms, like the super duper long ones that are built way up. And it's supposed to roll down that. And it does. It goes into a dump truck, and then it goes into, oh my God, it's great. It drops it, and then Will hit it into an S curve, which you had a curve on the right side that curved towards the left, and you have a curve on the left side that curved to the right. It was exquisite. Beautiful build. Lots of functionality there. It was pretty. Their S curve worked perfectly. Now, one of the things I was not able to see, and I don't think this was the case at all, but I'm pretty sure, well, my expectation was there were going to be some plates they could attach their builds to. From my understanding, from my watching of this and my minimal knowledge, just like every other viewer, it did not appear that way. It appeared that these things were just basically sitting there and just doing their job, which it looks like that may have been the case based on how some of the holes played and there was some flex and such. But Brendan and Greg, they did a good job. I don't know that it was top notch. This definitely wasn't what they have done in the past, but I do like the way that it was done. I think it was a very superb build, but it seemed like it just didn't have enough pop, enough pizzazz to be able to wow judges. So up next, we have Steven and Steven, who did a classic castle based on the original set from the 1990s. I friggin' loved this set. And the reason I did it, oh my God, it was so pretty. It was so stinking pretty. They did something that I was honestly not expecting at all. I really was not expecting it whatsoever. This castle, they had multiple builds, by the way, but this castle was unlike anything that I have seen in LEGO Masters in general. So there's multiple builds, but when Will hits the ball, there's a castle that it bumps up next to, and around the curve it goes, and a flag goes up. The tower had a flag goes up while you were golfing. Incredible. That's the kind of stuff that catches people, that people enjoy. That stupid, silly stuff that people enjoy when they go mini golfing. It was right there. It was perfect. And that shot lines you up for your final shot into the cup through a portcullis. If you're not familiar what a portcullis is in castles, these kind of, if you want to call them doors that raise vertically and lower vertically, they have, holes in between. They were basically built out of steel, iron, whatever they used back then. And it was essentially a gate in front of a door to keep people from intruding into a castle. Anyway, portcullis goes up, boink, and it goes into the hole, and perfect. Fantastic job. It was beautiful. There was something simple about it that I really did like. The portcullis is not super simple. It's not. There's some functionality there. It's motorized. But as a whole, I like the idea. You're pushing onto the classic castle. You're bringing out some nostalgia potentially for the judges. And everything just kind of worked out really, really well for them. I like the build. I really like the build a lot. Dave and Emily are up next. They did the Gnome's Wheelhouse. The Gnome's Wheelhouse. This was unique. They had a little gnome build. It was cute. And their build was simple. They had a wheel in the middle of two houses, one on each side. I think it was one whole build, but they had this. It was, think of it as essentially as a Ferris wheel in the middle of these two houses. And it's motorized, and it's essentially just trying to sweep the ball to the rear of these houses towards the hole. And prior to that, you have a curve. You have a 90-degree curve. You knock it on, and boom, you go. Well, prior to that, you have a teeter-totter. The ball goes up the teeter-totter and down the teeter-totter, around the curve, and in it goes. And their function was really nice. It was simple. It was easy. It was complex in the way that their motorized function worked. But everything came together in this perfect glue of awesome. I mean, it worked. For a build like this, it wasn't. So their building that had the Ferris wheel type, ball moving disc in the center, that was not the prettiest. The color variations were not the best, but they worked. They did what was needed to be accomplished, and things turned out quite well. So the last one here is Austin and Justin. Their build was called a piece of cake. It was essentially a bakery on steroids on a mini golf course. You had a mixer. You had spilt milk, which was an incredible build. You had a bag of flour spilling, all of that kind of stuff. I loved it. It was so stinking friggin' cute. It was so nice. I loved every single part of it. I thought it was great. The mixer had a little mixing disc. I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, the mixing disc inside the bowl that was moving. And here's the great part. After you make it through that, you knock it up the ramp into the disc, it's doing all this kind of stuff into the pot, into the hole, into the bowl. It does its stuff. Here is where it was sold. And I don't think this is what won it for them, because their builds were really, really nice. They looked like the things they were supposed to be. They were creative. They were unique. They had color to it. They had functionality to it. In the end, when you knock it into the hole, the oven opens. There's a cake on the inside, and it says Will on it. Not bad at all. I mean, if you're going to pander to the guy that's hosting the show, what better way to do it than after he makes a hole-in-one and, hello, there's my name. Oh, I love it. It's great. It's perfect. It's really, really, really perfect. So let's get to how they did. Let's start with the top two here. We had Dave and Emily chosen, and we had Austin and Justin chosen. The last two builds, not by coincidence, it's just the way I have them listed. It's been that way the entire season. Dave and Emily built another exquisite build, and they just continue to fight and continue to claw and continue to just be there. It's weird. Same with Austin and Justin. Maybe not as in such a weird position as Dave and Emily have been in, more so, but Austin and Justin just continue to get things done. They just continue to, astound people and be like, you know what? Hey, we're going to defeat the odds here, and we're going to do it. So Austin and Justin were the winners of this build. I agree. I think their build was, if you're going to compare them between Dave and Emily, they had way more color, and their functionality was better, in my opinion. I did love the Ferris wheel type design that was whipping that ball through, but I think Austin and Justin had a much better build as a whole. So let's get to the bottom two. Nick and Stacy were chosen, which does not shock me, should not shock you, especially because of their build. Just wasn't pretty enough. And then Ethan and Dom were the other. Ethan and Dom, they struggled. They had some mishaps as far as functionality goes. And the team to go home this week is Ethan and Dom. Ethan and Dom, unfortunately, bit the big one, and they are finished, kaput. They're out of here. They're going home. They're doing whatever they're doing. So unfortunately, Ethan and Dom are out of here. Nick and Stacy live to fight another day. Now, before we get to our power rankings, next week they have a challenge where they have to build a giant castle. And Jamie had said the team that build the biggest castle will be safe from elimination. That is massive. And then all the hard work that they're going to do, they're going to destroy it with a Lego wrecking ball. How it's like poetic justice, is it not? My goodness. So let's get to our power rankings here. We only have 6 teams this week because Dom and Ethan are no longer. We're coming to a head here. So let's start at number 6. My number 6 team this week is Nick and Stacy. Nick and Stacy came in last week at the number 5 team, 5 of 7 last week. And, ending up in the bottom, it doesn't bode well for you, especially 2 weeks in a row. It was an automatic drop. Like, they've got to go to the bottom. Ethan and Dom are gone. You're unfortunately at the bottom. Your build wasn't good enough. And 2 weeks in a row, you should be relegated. Should you not? Should you not be relegated from number 5 to number 6? If you were doing out of 7, they should have been number 7, honestly. The number 5 team that I have is Steven and Steven. Whoa, Matt, what are you thinking, bro? You're dropping them that far? I'm dropping them from number 4 from last week to number 5. Which you would be like, oh, wait, but dropping them to number 5. They didn't make the top 2. They didn't make the bottom 2. They are essentially mid-pack to a certain degree, but there are others that didn't fudge up enough to be able to increase their value any more than what it has. And again, this is not a week-to-week thing. The rankings are week-to-week, but I'm taking in the entire embodiment of work attached to these groups, these pairings. Austin and Justin coming at number 4. Austin and Justin, they won the challenge. They got to come up. They got to come up from the basement. They got to move up. They were 7 last week. They are not 7 this week. They have moved. I think it is well deserved, honestly. I think it is one of those things like, you're still kind of the mid-pack. You want it, but are you better than some of the top teams? Are you better than the lower teams right now? Yes, you are. You are. Dave and Emily. Dave and Emily come in at number 3. Number 3. Dave and Emily are an enigma. Each week, I don't know what I'm getting from them. I don't know whether I'm getting the greatest build pair ever, or I'm getting people that should put their head, in a cardboard box and just never see the light of day. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Some weeks I'm like, why are you on this show? And then other weeks I'm like, oh my God, this show was made for you. Did they make this show around you? It's absolutely insane. It's really insane, but they deserved it. Dave and Emily, Austin and Justin, they deserve to be over Steven and Steven and Nick and Stacy, who have finished in the bottom 2 on back-to-back weeks and continue to just hold on. Just hold on. That's all they're doing right now. My number 2 team and number 1 team. Brendan and Greg come in at number 2 and Emily and Liam come in at number 1. This could have been 1A and 1B, honestly. But I'm not going to do that. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, the whole way down. Brendan and Greg, Emily and Liam, their builds were nice. They held standard. They kept it there. They weren't in the top 2. They weren't in the bottom 2. They essentially stayed in the middle brackets of things. But Dave and Emily and Austin and Justin coming in from the bottom end of last week and pushing upward, are they good enough to get in front of Brendan and Greg? I don't think so. Are they better than Emily and Liam? I don't think so. Austin and Justin, I don't agree with either of that. I think they are midfield contenders, and based on here in the next few weeks, we're going to find out who's for real, who's the contender, and who's the pretender, as a 1992 Cowboys reference there from Butch Davis. Anyway, it's a wild world with Lego Masters. You never know from week to week. You really don't. So next week, like I said, the Lego Wrecking Ball, that's going to wreak some havoc on some builds and stuff like that, and as it should. So we'll see what happens. So make sure you stay tuned to the episode following this, where we have the interview with Ethan and Dom, and you have an opportunity to really just kind of go through and figure out their story and where they came from. I mean, they were only out of 8 episodes, they were only on there for 4, I believe, 4 episodes. Not a lot of time. They really just kind of had to jump into things. So until we meet again, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.